So for this first panel, we're calling it the e-Dustrial Revolution panel. Please welcome Dana Paul, co-founder of Rhode Island's own Ritual Motion. I'm looking this way because he's actually sitting in the same room. Ritual Motion is a multi-product esports company. These ramps are just one of the products, and I'm sure he'll talk about the others. He'll be introducing his company as well as his panel. Which really just represent the tip of the iceberg in terms of universities, high schools, innovators, people, and companies that frankly have been in Rhode Island for a while and are now pivoting to help esports. So take it away, Dana. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Just quickly with this whole industrial revolution idea. So one of the things we've been really fortunate of being a startup, we were a startup in Rhode Island. So as I told the story of how we began and we partnered with a manufacturer, we got this whole concept of helping people kind of pivot. So this manufacturer for years and years and years made a product and they hit a certain segment of the market. So we went to them, and that's the idea. The idea is to go to folks and help them pivot. When we suggested to them, we have this opportunity with gaming and esports like everybody else. They thought it was a 22-year-old in their basement, which is not the case. We then explained, like the folks at Sweet Science did and William did, that it's a huge industry. One of the things that's really interesting about it is 42% of the industry is made up of females. We found that out in the beginning, and we wanted to make sure we changed that kind of segment of it. So we made sure that, once again, inclusion and diversity was a big part of who we are. So our community, we're happy to say, is made up between 17 and 38-year-olds. That's the bulk, but 65% of our community is made up of females. So not only did we approach a manufacturer, we also did what I talked about really quickly, and that was we asked the community, we listened, and we delivered. So we do this wellness survey that we did last year. We had over 600 people fill out the survey. It was a health and wellness survey. And from that data, we realized that there's some other things going on, things like blue light, which is a big problem. So what did we do? We went to 2 local Rhode Island companies, one of them FGX, and one of them was Fifth and Ninth. And we said, listen, we have this community. They're crying out for blue light. We were approached by folks like Gunner, which great product, by the way, but not everybody can spend $90 on a pair of blue light glasses. So going through our filter of inclusion and diversity, we worked with these 2 partners and come up with a price point about $30 for a pair of blue light glasses. We then, out of that survey, realized that there were other things going on, right? Sleep was a big problem. So we then partnered with a nutritional company. And with that nutritional company, we did things to get sleep, anti-stress, and supplements that we have on our site that we knew was a big need for the community. The other was snacking, right? Everyone loves to snack. Well, the problem with snacking and gaming is if you eat Doritos, you're going to really mess up your HyperX keyboard, right? And so we realized that nutrition, believe it or not, was a big part of gaming and what is important to them. So we partnered with another local Rhode Island company called Snack that uses spirulina, which is a high and protein. It's all organic. It's all natural. It's vegan. And we created a whole snack brand, a Power Up, which you would probably take before you start gaming. Gives you a little energy. No caffeine in it, by the way. So we're trying to get away from the Red Bulls of the world and the extra strength Mountain Dews, or Power Down. That you're just going to be ending a gaming session. Maybe you're still hungry. You want to have something, and it kind of helps you relax. So that's the whole concept behind this e-Dustrial revolution, is how can we help companies that right now, especially with everything going on, need to pivot, need to kind of be introduced to this industry. There's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs out there, whether you want to be the next big gaming publisher, whether you want to be the next ninja. There's a lot of opportunities within the industry itself to break into it. So that's kind of where we're at and where we're focusing on as far as this e-Dustrial revolution. And like Suli said, we do have products. Content is our main product that we produce, and all around health and wellness, and we'll keep on producing that. But I am excited because I do know and had the opportunity. I know Jacques from a long time, and I think what they're doing at New England Tech is pretty amazing. I had an opportunity to see that facility, and I did have an opportunity to meet Jack and look at their facility at Helix. And I'd just like to say, Jack, if you want to introduce yourself and tell folks about what you have going over at New England Tech, because I think from a varsity perspective, you probably have one of the best facilities I've seen so far in New England.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for the intro, Dana. So despite having 4 children of my own under the age of 25, I don't claim, or prior to 2 years ago, I didn't claim to have a whole lot of knowledge around gaming, and certainly not esports. I always tell people I'm sort of gaming challenged, again, despite having children who game quite a bit. They just didn't have any patience for gaming with dad. So I'm a network engineer by trade, and I've been here at New England Institute of Technology for over 6 years now. And you know, in Rhode Island, New England Tech is pretty much a household name when it comes to, you know, technical colleges and trade schools and such. And we offer associates and bachelor's degrees in gaming design, simulation, development. My own son, my younger son, is in his final semester here in the game development program. And that being said, you would think that having, you know, an academic program as such, that we would have been an early adopter of esports. Well, that's not true. We really didn't start to get involved until about 2 years ago. There was demand, but it was never really dealt with, or nobody had championed the effort. But that just came on very quickly, about like I said, about 2 years ago. So being the CIO and here, I immediately was looking at the operational ability and the strategic ability of my team to support this type of environment. Again, we had academic programs which we supported, but just the general concept of supporting an esports program was a bit of a challenge. So it was kind of esports. My introduction to esports was definitely drinking from a fire hose. I had to understand, you know, the networking requirements, and then the physical hardware requirements, the peripheral components like, you know, video production and the broadcasting of such. So what I did is I joined as many work groups as possible. I jumped on board with some other academic communities. Again, as Dana mentioned, there isn't a whole lot of, in Rhode Island, there isn't at the collegiate level a lot of esports programs going on in the state. Yes, a number of colleges do have programs, but the closest work group I could find was out of Pennsylvania. And one of our nonprofits here in the state introduced me to our ISP, Internet Service Provider, is a nonprofit company here, Ocean, in Rhode Island, and their counterpart in Pennsylvania did have an esports work group. So I immediately got involved with their work group there. And again, just to get a bit of an education, work with some faculty here to build our facility, gather requirements, and we went live about a year ago with our facility. And the idea here, and I'll close my introduction with this, the idea here was to get the program going on an intramural basis, but fast track that into more of a club league competing against other schools, and then finally get to a collegiate competition level within a year. And that was the plan until the pandemic started in March. So we were, you know, off to the races in January and February of this year, and everything came to a screeching halt. But our strategy has not changed, and if anything, and I won't call this a good omen or anything like that, but having COVID has allowed my team to pause a little bit and get better on board with things like, you know, some of the tactical issues surrounding running an esports program. You know, we want to provide the best sort of esports forum that we can for these students. So becoming more skilled with, you know, downloading and updating games. And again, I mentioned I'm the CIO here, so my primary responsibility is supporting this environment. But I certainly want my entire team to be better partners with the gamers themselves. You know, that's ultimately our objective here.
That's great. And so Jack, I also, once again, I had an opportunity to see your facility, which is amazing. I think I saw it a week right after you opened, this past early spring. Once again, tell the folks a little bit about what you guys are doing. I know you're also working a lot with community building and trying to create programs.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it was a pleasure to meet you. I actually still have my Boston Uprising apparel they gave me, and it was pretty popular. I think we gave out all the prototypes you gave us when the first 2 weeks of opening were gone. So yeah, so I think some people heard me say before, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but you talked about the community building. I think that was at its core what was most important for us. I think growing up, I don't know if I mentioned this before, it's a family business, so it's my brother and I started this, and now we have other different family members involved as well. So it was pretty clear growing up there was just nothing like this for us. Like I said, we grew up in Wellesley, not far from here, and there was just no. If you wanted to be in a rock band, there were camps in the summer to do that. If you wanted to play lacrosse, there were teams to do that. If you wanted to play baseball, if you wanted to be in the marching band, there was always something to do if you had a passion for it. But when it came to esports, there was nothing. And we remember we used to go in our basement for sleepovers every Friday night, and we'd all steal like a TV from our parents' guest room or our aunt, and then we'd all line them up like 7 in a row next to each other, and that was the closest thing we had to a LAN center back then. So about 3-4 years ago, when we were doing a walkthrough of this event space in New Jersey where the original Helix is, my brother and I kind of quickly realized that there was just nothing. There's nothing like this, and I think growing up as kids, we selfishly would have wanted this, and that's probably kind of at the core of why we started this. But it became like goal priority, like 100% of our focus early on was community building and program building. And we saw, I talked about the quick play and the competitive, and we have separated the two now, but at the beginning it didn't really matter. It was people would show up and they'd be good at Fortnite and everyone would kind of gravitate towards them. And then you'd have Smash in one corner, Call of Duty in another. And it was really about building communities. And it took us about 6-7 months to really establish that. But once we got going, we kind of became the default scene for each game on the East and kind of tri-state, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut area. And then when we opened here in Foxborough, short-lived because of, or temporarily because of COVID, but even then we were quickly set out to just be a place where you can come and be a community. I mean, we say around here that gamers want to be social. I think it was Amy, no, someone else mentioned earlier the stigma of being a gamer. I think it's only like that because you have to play in your parents' basement or your bedroom, because that's where the infrastructure is, that's where the internet is, the Wi-Fi. It's usually, you don't bring your Xbox to school because it's not really conventional. So I think gamers want to be social and they just need a place to do that. And at Helix, we were kind of set on that mission to provide that. And that's, been our goal since day one, and hopefully that'll be our goal going forward.
That's great. Hey, Jack, Jacques, can you talk a little bit? I had an opportunity to, once again, I saw your facility and I heard you speak about how there was no blueprint for you guys to kind of like say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what 15 other people have done, and here's how we're going to do it. Can you just talk a little bit about that, the infrastructure, and also the security part about what you guys are able to achieve in a seamless way in that doesn't affect gameplay?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, it was, you know, the learning curve was like drinking from a fire hose. It truly was. I just had to immerse myself in as many forums as I could around esports, but also visited a number of schools. My best visit was the folks at Lackawanna College in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Visited their facility. And they have actually a flourishing esports program there, competition wise, as does most of Pennsylvania, actually, Harrisburg College as well, university as well. But I visited their facility and talked to, you know, their director as well as their IT folks, and they put their facility together really without a budget, and it grew organically, and so there were a number of cases like that, or folks that I had spoken to who really started by, hey, trying to steal, CPUs from this organization and putting some folding banquet tables together. And that's how a lot of these programs started. And it was great to hear their story, knowing full well that we were starting from a green pasture. So it helped in building those requirements, because we certainly were not going to grow organically. But I was able to listen to their trials, tribulations, and more importantly, their failures. And their failures really helped. And ultimately, none of them were failures because the programs are thriving. But by listening to their failures, we were able to build our own set of blueprints. And whether that was, let's talk about the network, for instance. What you want to do, because we do have a teaching and learning mission here at New England Tech, and we cannot interfere with that, the available bandwidth, the internet availability, as well as the protecting our critical data center assets, if you will. So, one of the first things I learned is you need to build a completely autonomous environment with a, pardon the phrase, but a big fat pipe to the internet, and dedicate that to the gamers. You don't, latency and availability are very important there, much like it is for telephones. So we just built that environment, and you mentioned security, Dana, but it ended up being very easy because we just created their own domain. And these ISPs, I mentioned the nonprofit ISPs, and I don't know how many folks are familiar with Internet 2, but early on with cloud services, Internet 2 started pairing with Amazon's and Microsoft's and Netflix, et cetera. Well, the Internet 2 has also started to pair directly with the gaming manufacturers. So we've got dedicated bandwidth across our internet pipes right to the gaming manufacturers. And again, they're just carving out big chunks of bandwidth across Internet 2 to connect not only the gaming manufacturers, but all the schools who are participating in these programs. So yeah, it was kind of easy because we were building from a green pasture. But listening to everybody's struggles helped us build sort of our architectural plan as well. That's something I just wanted to add something that Jack had mentioned, the community. I want to throw this in. I know I wasn't solicited on this, but there were a couple of telling points in my education or my indoctrination here, if you will. One is I've been coaching youth sports for the last 20 years. I coach youth hockey. I coach youth Little League for years. I coached, competitive softball, high school softball. And it took a session about 8 months ago at Becker College in Worcester in Esports. And I think some of the vendors that are on this call had a presence at that event. But there was a panel discussion with several esports teams. One was from Becker, one was from a school out in Western Massachusetts, I think New England College possibly. And the demographics or the backgrounds of everybody on that panel were extraordinary. One was a lacrosse player who had gotten injured, but he loved competition so much. He blew out his knee and he could no longer compete at the collegiate level. He got into esports, never competed in esports at all. And then there was a girl who had a completely different background, heavily involved in Girl Scouts, never involved in sports, got into gaming. And then you had a couple of the geeks, the gamers who were born with a gaming console in their hands. It was just so diverse, and I kind of made a connection at that point. You could call it an epiphany maybe, but with my sports, youth sports coaching background and seeing the diverse backgrounds of everybody, I immediately started to treat esports just like it was a soccer venue or a soccer team or everything. And once I had that epiphany, I certainly understood our school's mission with esports here. But it took that moment, and I really blame it on those esports team members on that panel back at that event at Becker.
Jacques, thanks so much for sharing that story. And, on that note, I just wanted to chime in, Dana, and say that Rhode Island was one of the first 5 states to sign up with Play VS. So Rhode Island Interscholastic League has high schoolers. This is the same interscholastic league that does hockey, right, Jacques, and soccer and everything. They picked up esports. Rhode Island was one of the first 5 states, and Play VS is actually going to be on top of the hour at 2:00 with Liz Murphy. So super excited about that. And
one
so
of our
glad you
goals
related that story, Jacques.
is to host the Rhode Island Interscholastic League championships here at New England Tech.
That's right.
And we had an event canceled. It was scheduled for March 20th. Mount St. Charles was going to compete against Hendricken, and it got canceled.
Bishop Hendricken has been like amazing, right? Yeah. And Dana, just wanted to shout out to Providence College as well, and Brown. I know there's a bunch of colleges here that have teams and clubs that are super active. So
our first visit was Mount St. Charles. Was Providence College.
Yeah.
Paul Fontaine and his folks gave us a tour of their facility, and in a lot of ways we followed their lead building our facility.
awesome.
So kudos to them from me.
Yeah, there's a lot of New England schools, a lot of great. We have a huge varsity program that we help all these programs in high school. So when I say varsity, it's high school all the way up. Do fundraising. So we have a whole program that we do. Like I can share the link later on. But what I wanted to talk to quickly, Jack and Jacques, esports was almost made for a pandemic, right? It's one of the only things that, as you see, all these colleges cutting down in high school sports. Both of you are in physical facilities, and kind of, if you could both just talk quickly, and then we could get folks to ask you guys questions. But so what's your plan for 2021 moving forward on how to be able to still do community building, still do your events, and still keep in, with whatever protocol we need to do as a society moving forward with COVID?
Well, I can answer that. So in our summer quarter, we're on an academic quarter system, not semesters. So for our summer quarter, we had a small amount of students on campus, and we just started our fall quarter, and about half of our classes are being offered on campus. And all told, we've got about 125 classrooms at New England Tech, and about 100 of them are computer labs. We're very very hands-on college. So we've got about 100 classrooms that have all different types of computer desktops, whether it's Mac, virtual desktops, or in the case of our gaming programs, those are big honking PCs. That being said, we've had to socially distance in all of those computer labs. So the capacity of those classrooms, some were 30 computers in a classroom, we're down to like 8, depending on the square footage of the room. So we had to go through every one of our labs and classrooms, including our esports facility, which is open for recreational use right now. But we had to just significantly reduce the footprints. I'm sure Jack had to do that in his facilities as well. We've got shields up in the esports studio, but a lot of our classrooms, we've just reduced the footprint significantly. And to do so, we remove the keyboards, the mice, and the power cords. So they simply can't use that. And then we're protecting them. We have these plastic bags that go over the mice and keyboards, and they get disposed between each class. And you asked about fall. So right now we're about half capacity in classroom. And the plan right now is to ramp that up. What that percentage ends up being in the winter quarter, I don't know. In January, I don't know yet. We're still trying to figure that out. And the Rhode Island Department of Health has a lot to say in that too.
Yeah, as someone note for us, I think step one for us is again pre-pandemic. The priority number one for us has always been the safety and health of our community. I mean, for a number of reasons, we've always made sure that's whether it's for community guidelines, code of conduct, and then obviously we were presented with a new challenge, which was the pandemic. First and foremost was state regulations. We have different locations in different states, so obviously things change, capacity limits. Our cleaning procedures are the same across the board, and I joked before that like even pre-COVID, our cleaning procedures were pretty over the top, so they fit pretty nicely with things now. First step was getting the health inspectors in, showing them how we were going to run things, getting it approved. And then it was just kind of instilling confidence in the people. A lot of our community that knew us knew how seriously we took that. And then for our new customers, it's just important to let them know that, hey, you're going to get a modified experience. Our tournaments aren't these large events anymore. They're primarily these week rolling tournaments where you can compete alone on a Monday, and then your friend can come in on Tuesday, and then your uncle can come in on a Wednesday. Really, we modified our tournament. I mean, we have an event literally called the Social Distance Showdown. And in terms of, I think, Dana, you asked about future plans. I mean, for us, it's going to be business as usual. I think, like a lot of people, we are taking this very seriously, but we also believe that there is going to be a point where the world goes back to normal. Hopefully that's 6, 9, 12 months, whether that's we are talking about the vaccine or a treatment or what is it going to be. Something's going to happen. I like to look at, I think next summer, I just got an email that Lady Gaga was playing at Fenway Park. So if Lady Gaga is playing at Fenway Park next summer for 40,000 people, we're hoping that we can have our 100-person tournaments back here. So we're optimistic. We follow the state guidelines closely. We always like to be a little under them. So if they allow 100 people in here, we'll go to 90. We don't want to push the limits. It's just not what we're comfortable with, because again, if one person leaves here feeling like, oh, that was too close to call, then that's just not what we're about. But in terms of growth, we're looking at other locations. We're talking to a few major real estate developers about that. And if there's one silver lining from this, you guys might get a kick out of this. The retail shopping areas are a little cheaper than they were before. So hopefully that'll play into our growth. But for now, it's just following local guidelines in New Jersey, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. And then business as usual, as we predict in 6, 7, 10 months, we will be back to normal.